This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out.
Get ready for certified USDA prime gun stuff on the GunGuyTV podcast.
Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV. I'm very grateful for everything you do. So please don't stop. This podcast is yet another installment of the GunGuyTV Firearms podcast, and as usual, it is 1 hour long, or roughly an hour long. I don't seem to ever hit the mark exactly. The first half an hour will be available on your favorite podcast player. It's free, and we'll also put up some video versions on the various YouTube and other video platforms. And then the second half hour is available on Patreon only. So if you'd like to hear the second half hour, I do urge you to join GunGuyTV on Patreon. Now, another way that you can support GunGuyTV if you'd like, without costing yourself 1 red cent, is to shop Amazon using our Amazon link. Yes, I know, Amazon is an unfriendly company where the Second Amendment is concerned, and I get it, but still, I recognize that a lot of people shop Amazon anyway. I find myself doing it from time to time, too. So if you're going to shop Amazon anyway, you might as well pick their pocket and help out GunGuyTV a little bit so that we can keep this thing going. The easiest way to do that is to go to our website at GunGuy.tv and look for the Amazon banner on the top. It's just a little rectangular banner. You can click on it. It will take you to Amazon using our Amazon link. And once you get there, you're looking at the Amazon page, go ahead and bookmark that page. And every time you shop Amazon, if you go back to that bookmark first, then anything you buy on Amazon will be as if you had purchased it through our website, and we'll get credit for it. It doesn't cost you a dime, but it does help out GunGuyTV because we get a little marketing fee. So please shop Amazon using our Amazon link. Now, on to the podcast. Okay, so I sat around yesterday. First of all, yesterday was kind of a cool day. We had a great time with our Bible group, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And then we finally got the Christmas tree up and got the lights on it. We haven't decorated it yet. We're going to do that today because we weren't all together as a family last night to put up the various and sundry decorations. But we did get some decorations up outside, some lights up outside. We'll finish those today. And now, finally, it feels like Christmas. I was telling my wife the other day, we were going for a walk. I said, I don't feel like it's Christmas. So many of the houses are not decorated. Some are, but an awful lot are not. And people just didn't seem to be in the Christmas spirit. But putting the tree up, getting the lights up, and putting some things out really made Christmas come alive for me, and I think for the rest of my family yesterday. So I started thinking last night about the positive things that have happened in the year 2020. Oh, sure, I could spend the entire hour talking about negative stuff, but frankly, you get enough of that from the news and from YouTube and other things anyway. So let's talk about the things that went well. I can acknowledge the fact that we had some difficulties this year. Certainly the loss of my stepdad to a heart attack was a difficulty. Certainly some health challenges that some members of my family have faced have been difficulties. And then we just found out that my wife's favorite aunt passed away yesterday. Of course, she was in her 90s. And no, she didn't pass away from COVID. She just passed away from old age. And so those things are challenging, but at the same time, some very good things have happened this year, too. And I thought, since this is the last audio podcast I'm going to do for 2020, I would try to accentuate the positive, as the old song from Bing Crosby says. So let's talk about that just a little bit, shall we? Obviously, with COVID, it's been tough to maintain friendships and relationships because you can't go see each other, or for the longest time you couldn't. Now, at this point, we just don't care anymore. And a lot of people feel the same way, and so we go see our friends and get it over with, and they do the same. But there for a long time, we couldn't do that. So while some relationships have grown a little bit more distant, amazingly, some others have become much closer, and I'm very grateful for those. One of which I have to highlight is our Bible study group. We call it a Bible Talk, and we get together once a week. Now, it moves around because Jim, one of our members, his job hours tend to change about once every 4 months or 3 months or something. And so we move it around to accommodate Jim and Laura. However, that group has just stayed together and been vibrant and exciting and getting deep into the Bible every week. It really has been a light throughout this very difficult time. New people that I've invited or other people have invited have come into the group, and the group has actually grown. So we just do it over Zoom. Once we can start meeting in person, we'll start doing that. But some of us we just won't be able to because we have members of our Bible group who are in other countries and other parts of the country and so on. So that has been a real highlight of 2020. And I don't think it would have come together quite the way it did if it weren't for the pandemic. So there's an example of God taking all things and somehow making them good for the people who love him. And he did that with our Bible group. Every Sunday is a joy getting together with those people. And from Sunday to Sunday, I look to the next Sunday, and I'm very excited to be part of it again. Every one of us in the Persinger household has grown closer to each other. We were a close-knit family anyway, but certainly COVID has helped us grow closer, not farther apart. I credit that to God, but I also credit it to having a close family in the first place. My wife is of Mexican and Spanish descent. I'm half Italian. My son is half Filipino. These are all cultures that come together and have tight-knit families, and so our family is very close, and I'm extremely grateful for that. When difficulties come, it seems that rather than pull us apart, it drives us closer together, and we've come closer together as a family as a result. So that has been a great thing this year as well. And then, of course, we've had to improvise with some of our friends to grow closer to them. I think Pete Elmore, who you've seen on GunGuyTV, and I have become closer friends, much closer friends this last year than we were before. And I'm grateful for Pete's friendship. I know I've become closer, much closer friends with Rick Travis at CRPA and much closer friends with Sam Paredes at Gun Owners of California. At first, we started out just people who were helping each other in the Second Amendment cause, but we've become good friends, and I'm grateful for their friendship. I mean, all three of those guys I just mentioned are very faithful and very great men. I'm grateful for them. It was yesterday, I think, my wife and I found a picture. I'd like to claim that I found it, but I didn't. She did. But she had found a picture from a long, long time ago. I look at it and I see myself in it and I think, oh my gosh, I was young once and I was thin once. Not anymore. But it's a picture of a couple of guys I worked with. Alan Scott, who's one. Alan and I are incredibly close friends. I met Alan back in his Channel 10 News days. We worked together for a long time. I can't express how grateful I am for Alan's friendship. He is easily one of the most straightforward, no-nonsense, honest, and loyal people I have ever had the privilege to know. And then there's Alberto. I don't know if Alberto would want me to say his last name, so I'm not going to do it without asking him first, but he actually doesn't live that far from me. I mean, he's the most talented photographer I've ever known, and certainly one of the most energetic people I've ever known. And one thing I love about him is he's incredibly talented. He's a go-getter, and yet he's got zero ego. You run into these very artsy people. They generally aren't like that. And I used to run into Alberto a lot while hiking a local mountain here that he likes to hike, and so do I. But COVID kind of put an end to hiking there, and I'm hoping to start again in January, and perhaps I'll run into Alberto again. However, now I think I might give him a call today. I posted the picture, by the way, if you'd like to see it, on Patreon. These guys are really terrific people. But what that does illustrate, because Alan and I have had to connect using technology, and we've had our Bible talk connecting using technology, and we've basically had to change the way in which we get together as friends. That has been an interesting exercise because we've learned a lot about not only how to maintain friendships in austere circumstances and situations, but also how to maintain friendships over great distances. We're very close friends with some people in England, and we've drawn closer, I think, as a result of COVID than we were before because we've made the extra effort to go the extra mile and use technology to be able to stay connected with them. A very dear friend of mine and his wife live in Alaska, and we don't see them that often. But Bart and I have spoken very regularly, and we stay close because we use technology to do it. So COVID, I think, in some ways has caused us to follow we do as the Marines do, improvise, adapt, and overcome. And we've done that all year. And as a result, when I look back on the year, I realize there's so many difficult things that we've faced, and I know you have too. But at the same time, we've come through them by simply hanging on to God, hanging on to one another, and improvising, adapting, and overcoming. And that in it itself has been a very positive experience. And then we've been privileged to witness the kindness and generosity of other people as well. An example of that, which really struck me, was yesterday, a gentleman named Scott. I won't mention his last name because I don't know if he would want me to, or his wife's name, he might not want me to, but I used to work with him at KSON years and years and years ago. They stumbled on me on YouTube and came by the house. It's been some time ago, and it was very nice to see them. Unexpectedly, they dropped off a letter about what's been going on with them this year, and a Christmas card, which they signed, and a bunch of cookies, which, if you're listening, Scott, if your wife baked those or you baked those, I got to tell you, those things did not last very long. They were gone in a flash. In fact, my wife said, what are we making? I guess cookies are our dinner tonight. As it turned out, it wasn't. Our son, Nick, made a fabulous dinner, and we sat and had dinner, but we ate the cookies and wiped them out. There's still some of the pumpkin bread and other things that they dropped off with them, but the incredible effort they went to come by and drop that off just to encourage us was just amazing. I was very grateful for that kindness, and we've seen examples of that kind of kindness from one person to another in this difficult time all year long. Yeah, like I said, we can focus on the election, and we can focus on the news, and we can see all the negative things and scary things that are happening in our lives. And yes, I've talked about those on this show. I just produced a video the other day talking about those. But at the same time, if we forget to look at the bright side, then we think that the world is coming to an end. I've talked about this many times. We've got to take a few minutes, as they say, to smell the roses, to look at the gentleness, kindness, and grace around us, to experience the grace of God, if we have it, and I hope that we do. And at the same time, I think to see the good in people around us. If we don't do that, then what have we got? Quite frankly, we don't have much. So I encourage you to do that. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. It is a strange fact. Well, maybe it's not so strange. It's an obvious fact, I think, that so many guns have been sold in 2019 that it sort of boggles the mind. I think we've sold almost 20 million the first 6 months of this year, and then it's gone on since then. And now people are still buying guns as fast as they can produce them and buying ammunition as fast as it can be made. I see that as very positive because more and more people in the United States have taken their own safety and their own security seriously. And they've taken responsibility for themselves rather than laying that off on law enforcement and the government to take care of them and protect them. They've decided to take that as their own responsibility. I can't say that that's anything other than positive. However, it does put you in a unique position once you do that, and that is that if you have to, God forbid, you have to actually defend yourself, you could find yourself in some legal trouble. So I do urge you to prepare for that by not only having a firearm and ammunition, but also having some legal coverage. The company I use is called Second Call Defense. I've used them for many years, and I do suggest them to my students, and so I'm going to suggest them to you as well. I'll put a link in the description, but if you're listening to this on a podcast player while you're driving to work, you can't exactly find that. So I would urge you then to go to our website at GunGuy.tv and look for the CCW coverage tab on the top, or just scroll down the website a little bit and you'll find a banner ad for Second Call Defense. I strongly suggest you sign up today.
Shooting straight and always right on target. This is the GunGuyTV podcast.
Now, back to what we were talking about, I think the other thing that this has done for us this year is given us a lot of time to do stuff around the house we otherwise would never have gotten done. I mean, we've had so much stuff around our house we've been wanting to clear out for so long and never seem to have the time to do it. Well, 2020 has certainly given us the time, for crying out loud. We couldn't go to the beach for the longest time. We couldn't go to the mountains. You can't go get something to eat at the restaurants. You can't go to the movies. I mean, you start running out of things that you can actually do. And so at some point, you stay home, you start looking around thinking, golly, we got a lot of junk. Let's purge some of this stuff. So this year, honestly, like many people, we've done a lot of purging and a lot of planning. So let me just share with you some of the purging we've done, and you'll go, good grief, gun guy. What did you have at your house? For example, we got rid of 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 junk cars. Now, you'd say to yourself, what in the world were 3 junk cars doing at your house? Well, I can tell you what they were doing. Nothing. Gathering rats. It's what they call a rat rod. If you leave the hot rod sitting out there long enough and you don't do anything, it becomes a home for vermin, and they start calling it a rat rod. Well, we had 3 rat rods, and we got rid of all 3 of those. We have 1 left, and it does run. The other ones did not. But this one does run, and it runs pretty well. But we're going to sell it, and that will be the last of the Mohicans when it comes to the junk cars that we had around our house. We also got rid of a ton of what I call OPS, other people's stuff. It's amazing when you own a home how much stuff other people leave at your house. Hey, bro, can I leave such and such in your garage just for a couple of days, and then I'll come pick it up because I don't have a space for it, and we're moving and blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, that thing has been sitting in there for 2.5 years. That cat moved to Texas or someplace. You haven't heard from him the whole time, and that thing is still sitting in there. You don't want it, need it, and half the time you don't even know what it is. And at some point or other, you've gotten so tired of tripping over the darn thing that you just want to get rid of it. Well, we have purged an enormous amount of other people's stuff. Another ton of stuff we just never used, and so we got rid of that as well. And most of it went to the dump, and if it was in any kind of usable shape, it went to the thrift store. We figured we'd help them out. But the purge has been going on all year, and quite frankly, it isn't over yet. We're still purging some of our own stuff, but some other people's stuff as well. The one nice thing about it is this year has focused us on that, and so we've actually gotten rid of a lot of things. As a matter of fact, in the middle of our living room, right over by where my wife's desk is, we've had for quite some time something she's affectionately called the heap. We took all this stuff that we wanted to purge and we piled it there. And so it was this obnoxious heap of stuff in our living room, which is finally gone because we had to get through the heap in order to put up the Christmas tree. So purging has been a very good thing. And then we've also worked on some plans in our life. This may sound like your household. Am I describing you by any chance? Maybe I am. I don't know. But we've worked on some plans as well. We've planned some things to do at our house. We want to build a fire pit in the backyard. We'd like very much to build what my wife quaintly calls a cabana, like the Copacabana. I never liked the song very much, but I've been humming it lately because we want to put up a cabana. We have a really nice covered porch there, but it's got all kinds of stuff in it, my workout equipment and all kinds of other things. We want to move that to the other side of the house and build a cabana. So out there, we'll put some great furniture. We'll put a grill out there. Maybe we'll put a smoker there for Nick because he loves to smoke steaks and other stuff. And I'd like to have the guys from church come over for fight night and, whatever. I do like to watch boxing matches and MMA stuff and like that. So that'd be kind of cool, and sports or whatever, but also for other things, movie night and that kind of stuff in the backyard. We're also going to hopefully get solar on it this year. That'll help us with our electric bill. So we've been able to sit around and plan a lot of that stuff. And then in the process, we purchased a property out in Arizona, roughly 40 acres, and we have been sitting around planning a lot of stuff we want to do with that. And you say, Joel, you said you're not moving out of California. Well, we're not. There you are. Although I have friends who are predicting that we're going to be gone. We're moving to Arizona. We're going to move out on that 40-acre property. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Get out. No, probably not. We still live here. We love living in San Diego. Although California can be a nuisance, in a lot of ways, I'm seeing California move red, and we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes as well. So chances are we probably won't move out of California entirely, but we do have a lot of plans for that property. But for us, it will be a second home of sorts, a place to escape the hustle and bustle of work and city life, or suburban life, really. We don't really live in the city as much as we live in the suburbs. But that's going to be what we're going to do, some camping there initially, and eventually build some things out there so that we can be out there for vacations and hunting and outdoor stuff and just thoroughly enjoy that property while we have it. And then, obviously at some point or other, it'll belong to our kids and they can do with it as they please if they want to move out there. And I'm not saying we'll never move out there. We might, but that isn't the plan at the moment. But we do have some great plans for that property, and among those plans are to do some things that we'll do that will be on GunGuyTV for you. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute as well. We've also learned a lot of stuff. I'm grateful for all the things that we've learned because, when you're stuck at home, well, you start learning stuff. Either that or you vegetate, and vegetating is just never really a bit appealing to me. So I'll tell you a little bit about the things that we've learned in just a minute. I've mentioned a few ways that you can support GunGuyTV. One of the ways that you can do that and get access to the exclusive content that you'll only find there, things like the second half of this podcast, for example, just fun stuff I stick up there every day. You'll find all that stuff on Patreon. So I urge you to check out GunGuyTV on Patreon and support us over there. I'll put a link in the description for you, but you'll also find it at our website at GunGuy.tv, or for that matter, you can just go on Patreon and search for GunGuyTV and join us there.
This podcast needs your help. Send your entire wallet to The Gun Guy, 1313 Mockingbird Lane, Transylvania.
We have learned all kinds of things during the COVID time, some of which is work-related and some of it's personal. I mean, for example, my wife has been sort of forced into doing teletherapy, which she wanted to learn anyway, but the learning curve was fairly steep. Still, she's gotten very good at it, and it's, I gotta tell you, at first it seemed a little bit like a curse, but now it's become a bit of a blessing, and it's actually, I think, shaped some of our goals and some of her goals with her career to move maybe more of her practice online, particularly as we get closer and closer to wanting to retire and do a little traveling and spend a little time on our property out there in Arizona. It's going to be easier if we're working primarily online. Well, COVID has forced that. Nothing like having your arm twisted into doing something you were planning on doing but didn't want to do quite that quickly. I've also played my guitar more this year. I should say I've played with it more this year. I still can't play the darn thing, but I do play with it, and that has been fun. The learning curve is fun to deal with because it's an enjoyable activity, not something I'm being forced to do. At the same time, I've learned an awful lot more about Wirecast, which is a software we use to do the interviews for GunGuyTV. Wirecast is outstanding. It does some amazing things, but it is a convoluted piece of spaghetti, and if you change one tiny little thing in one place, it seems to affect everything else. And that's why sometimes my interviews sort of blow up, is because it's not Wirecast, obviously. It's the knucklehead using it, and that would be me. But I have learned an awful lot more about it, and I'm getting better at it as time goes by. I think the other thing I've enjoyed, and I haven't been doing as much about it and with it lately as I would like to, but certainly Pete has. He and I are going to get together today and chat a little bit, and he's been doing a lot more, and that is woodworking. I've been fortunate enough to be able to purchase some additional tools so I can spend more time doing that. I have some furniture I'd like to build and some other things I'd like to make, and hopefully we'll be able to have more time to do that going forward as I do more and more online work and less physical work, because I did retire from teaching. I'm not teaching on the range anymore, except for the one class I teach for the Sheriff's Department once a month, and that's it. And then there's also the Second Amendment stuff, which is actually pretty positive coming out of 2020. Now, what 2021 will bring, I don't know. That all depends on who becomes president, and we still have that kind of up in the air. We talked about that on a couple different podcasts here, and certainly I talked about it in the video that I produced the other day. But in the meantime, during 2020 and during his presidency, Trump has changed the federal court system dramatically. Those changes will affect the Second Amendment positively in court cases for decades. At least that's my prediction, and that's certainly the hope of Second Amendment advocates all around the country. I think it will be very positive for the Second Amendment. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll honestly be surprised if that's not the case. And the work that President Trump and Mitch McConnell have done with the federal court system cannot be undone by a Biden and Harris administration, at least not very easily. You can't unappoint judges. And the idea of packing the Supreme Court is a lot harder to do than people make it out. So I don't think that's likely to happen either, although it is a possibility. So that's one of the reasons why we have to win the Senate races in Georgia, and to continue, I think, the battle for the election. But moving on, the silent majority is no longer silent. Rallies are still happening. Trump rallies are still happening. Second Amendment rallies are still happening. The silent majority, which has been silent for so long, and I think feeling as if they didn't have a voice, has finally decided to speak out, and speak out publicly, and speak out powerfully. And you begin to see these politicians who have been feckless and weak-kneed for a very long time step up and start speaking out for their constituents, because they're now afraid they're going to be unelected if they don't. Well, that's a very positive turn of events, if you ask me. And so I think that's something very positive that honestly, Donald Trump is pretty much single-handedly caused to do with his Trump supporters and his rallies. It's also something I think that will carry on long after President Trump is no longer president, whether that's in 2021 or 4 years from now. The silent majority is no longer silent. And if you're part of that group, as I am, I urge you never to be silent again. Populism is taking hold around the world. Real people have finally had enough of globalist elites robbing us of our money, jobs, rights, and freedom. And you start seeing that all around the world, not just in the United States. It's an actual movement that has gripped the entire planet, I think. And if you want to know more about why and how and all the details of that from the standpoint of a scientist looking at it, you can always watch Steve Turley's show on YouTube or other places, I suppose. I don't know. I watch it periodically. I think he does a couple videos a day, which I don't know if I could do that, but I do watch it periodically, and I learn a lot because he's got the academic background to explain the whys and wherefores, which I don't. I just observe it happening, and I'm frankly very encouraged. I think you should be too. Even in California, people are speaking up and things are changing. Citizens have become fed up with the oppressive government in California, and Gavin Newsom, or Gruesome Nuisance, or Gavin Nuisance, whatever you want to call the guy, faces a very strong and very real recall. Now, the truth is, I think he only has a year left in his term, so it might end up symbolic more than anything else by the time that it's done. But the fact that people are standing up and protesting at the capital of California and standing up to recall this obnoxious governor, I think is very positive. People are sick of the lockdowns. They're sick of the overreaching government control, and you're starting to see that. Sheriffs, mayors, city councils, police chiefs are refusing to enforce lockdowns in California. I think that's phenomenal, and it's not something I would have predicted, but we're seeing it now because their constituents, their citizens, are fed up. Well, what I'm seeing is when people get fed up, they actually take action. So once again, this is another example of the silent majority speaking out, and another example of people who have been on the progressive liberal side now being forced to live with the results of what they voted for and not liking it. Rick Travis talked about this the other day, and I've had Sam Paredes talk about it and others. Some of these folks who have voted for these strong gun controls for years and supported them now want to go out and get a gun and can't believe they have to wait 10 days or can't believe they have to have a double background check, one for ammunition, one for guns, and can't believe this, that, and the other thing, and why is this, and can't believe they can't get a concealed carry permit. And now they're discovering that the fruits of their labor are things that they don't like, and now they want them changed. And to that end, we're starting to see in California sheriffs around the state issuing more and more and more concealed carry permits. Now, you can say we shouldn't have to get a permit. We should just be able to carry because it's a constitutional right. And I agree with you 100%. Nevertheless, I'm happy whenever I see things moving in the right direction. And what I'm describing to you is California moving in the right direction. Of the 58 counties in the state, I think 56 are now issuing, and that includes Los Angeles County. Now, Los Angeles County is not issuing a bunch because they don't really have the system in place to do it, but the sheriff wants to issue a bunch. And just that desire, and from what I hear from the California Rifle and Pistol Association, not only the desire, but the action to put the processes in place to install the software, to hire the people, to assign the budget, and all the things they need to do to start issuing concealed carry permits to residents of Los Angeles County is really cool. I mean, I would not have predicted that happening in the next 10 years, and yet it's happening, I think, in large part because of COVID and because of the fact that people have been forced to wake up to the fact that Californians are not free. They thought they were, but they're not, and now they would like to enjoy their freedom. People of every political mindset have chosen to buy guns and are now fighting for their Second Amendment rights rather than against them. And that is, again, something that has happened, I think, as a result of COVID and as a result of the political stuff that we've seen happening in our country and in our state, and as a result of the populism that is taking hold around the world and also in the United States. I'm not sure that a Biden win, if it happens, is really going to have the ability to squelch that. I think that's going to continue regardless. Now, certainly, If it's a Trump win, that drives that even farther and harder and better. But I think either way, people are fed up and they're going to make noise and they're not going to be quiet. And I think that's very positive. Then there's the other piece, too, which is big tech and the plans that we have for GunGuyTV and all those things. And I'm going to talk about those, too. But unfortunately, I've run out of time in the public part of the podcast, so I'm going to get to those on Patreon. If you'd like to hear the second part of the podcast, we'll talk about the big tech stuff, the mainstream media stuff, and the plans we have for the future of GunGuyTV on Patreon. If you're on the public podcast player, your favorite podcast player, or you're watching the video version on YouTube or one of the other video distribution centers, then I hope you have a wonderful Merry Christmas and a great New Year. If you're on Patreon, stick with me. We'll start the next half here in just a minute. In the meantime, wherever you go, whatever you do, be safe.
You've been listening to the GunGuy TV podcast.